So yeah, it's raining outside. But anyways, about 5 hours ago, Dr. Lava on Twitter actually released some more footage. And I'm still trying to find this, so if anybody has the Dexter entries, please send it to me. I don't know where in the source code you find this, but apparently there have been source codes that have confirmed there was at least 68 Dexter entries that were leaked that stated that there were some Pokemon that were actually scrapped from Gen 3 that we never got. So, and this is actually confirmed too, because we've known that Shellos and Gastrodon that were supposed to be in Gen 3, and we actually kind of know what they look like. Someone found their sprites apparently, and they leaked them into Gen 4. We know that was just transferred over to the next games, and that wouldn't be the first time it's ever been done like that. So apparently there was a shrub one that was released. Again, we have to go back and read the Dexter entry. But there was one that somebody pointed out, and this is the video I want to talk about, was that somebody leaked like the beta Rayquaza Dexter entries, and it stated that it was actually supposed to be a lot different than what it originally looked like. So if you remember, Rayquaza was the green dragon that lived in the Sky Pillar. In the Sky Pillar, Rayquaza would always sleep until Groudon and Kyogre would actually fight each other. So one was the land, and then the other was in the sea. But Rayquaza was the one that, like with its airlock ability, would be able to hone in on their position and then disturb any balance that there's any weather, so nullify any weather conditions, and it would return back to normal as its guardian of the the sky traditions. But before, they stated that it was like kind of like a snow dragon, sort of, or maybe it wasn't even a dragon at all, sort of. It could have just been it's still been a dragon. Maybe it was like an ice dragon, sort of. Like it was kind of like, think of it like the white dragon from like Final Fantasy, the like Final Fantasy 4 or 2 on the Super Nintendo. The white dragons you fight later on, where they had like pure white scales, and they were like they weren't hard to kill if you had like really high physical attack, but they had but Pokemon's always like to make Final Fantasy references, and a lot of them they were scrapped too, that I would like to see them come back and pull back. But so basically, Rayquaza was supposed to be like a white dragon, and it didn't sort of look the same way. And again, the sprite that you actually be seeing would actually be a lot different, because it's not the official one. It's kind of just someone else's interpretation. So we really just need to someone needs to leak the prototype. We need to get our hands on the build of it, and maybe see if we can find the actual version of it, because that would be interesting if somebody can actually leak the full sprites. So as of right now, it seems like we know of 4 Pokemon that were actually leaked. You had Rayquaza, you had that shrub Pokemon that we still got to go back and talk about. But then you also had Shellos and Gastrodon, and that was definitely confirmed. So the way I look at it, I do think they would have, they definitely reworked a lot of stuff, but I think all the designs were eventually either in Gen 3, Gen 4, or somewhere else. And I can definitely say that for a fact, because if you really think about it, a lot of the ideas that they had were eventually used. I mean, even if you look at Gen 1 and Gen 2's prototype, because you're going back even further, I mean, we were able to basically kind of come up with a lot of ideas that what they could have been. So they've been recycled, they've been scrapped. We had to cover Gen 2 still, but or at least on this channel anyways, but we'll get to that though. So basically, because Gen 1 was the one I was mostly concerned about, because that's the hardest stuff to come by, and nobody else is really talking about it as much. But from what I understand, if Gen 1 had a lot of stuff that was moved to Gen 2 and then scrapped to like Gen 3, or heck, they even had a couple of them that were in Gen 2's prototype that got scrapped, and then it went all the way up to Gen 8's, with Sobble, for example. It was very interesting how they did that. But I think really, if you look at the kind of species and the designs of the characters, you can really sort of figure out like who was reworked into what, and maybe who wasn't reused at all. I still do think there's a lot of designs that they didn't use, but like I've said before, I do think that eventually we'll figure out, especially if you can get your hands on the actual sprite of what it looked like, you can kind of like be like, okay, now that we have something to compare it to, like the final versions of the game, we can definitely confirm that yes. So like, I wouldn't be surprised that one of them was Rayquaza, for example. It's just, which ones. and here's the way I'm looking at it right now, now that I think about it. I do think that because we can pull up the final versions of the games, like, so for example, like Emerald, Ruby, and Sapphire, we could go into their game and look at all the Dexter entries. We could look at all the Gen 3 ideas they had. And we can definitely sort of look at the designs they had, read their Dexter entries, and we can kind of figure out who's who, because we have something to compare it to. Unless, of course, it was a completely different design altogether. But I'm thinking right now that we should... I'm thinking right now what we should do is... because there was even a beta version of what the Dexter entries look like, aside from the ones that we're trying to figure out still. And we can still kind of compare it to, like, it wasn't like the final build, but it was like really close to the final build. And so we can still kind of get an idea of like which Pokemon were used, which ones weren't. And so we can kind of narrow it down a little bit further, basically. But I'll have to dig into that, because right now I'm not, like, as I'm making this video, I'm not home right now, so I'll have to take care of that. But yeah, it's just interesting though, like, you know, to think that you never know what's going to happen. Somebody eventually stumbles across something, uploads it to the internet, and eventually here we are talking about it. So, you know, so yeah, basically, yeah, I'm still looking for beta designs too. I just got to figure out what the rest of them are at. And I mean, because I've only seen people talk about some of them, but I think there was one guy on YouTube that was talking about all of them, and I got to go back and see if that's true. Because as of right now, there's 68 of them that we know of. So if that is true, then what are the other 64 at this point? So again, if anybody knows, let me know. If not, again, subscribe to this channel if you're not. We'll figure this out as we go. But it's basically a team effort right now.